Hi, everyone. Dr. Steve Rasner here, and you're tuned into the Lionhearted Dental Podcast. Welcome. First, let me say, you know how I go on the air every week and I talk about so few of you reach out to me? That is no longer true. And those of you that reach out, honestly, those of you that know I respond will know and be able to verify that I don't just give you a 5-minute phone call, and there's certainly no bait and switch going on. In other words, there's no agenda. I'm just really here to help you if I can. And I wish I had a mentor who had no agenda to help me as well. So I enjoy it. Those of you, sometimes honest to God, if I call 4 people and I spend 20 minutes to half an hour on the phone, that's 2 hours. So there's only so many I can call back. But it makes me feel like you're listening. So thank you. I have a good one for you tonight. And I am calling it Why You Do Not Have 100K Weeks. Now, before I say one word about this, let me give you the backdrop for this podcast. It doesn't matter if I say to you why you don't have $100,000 weeks or why you don't have $50,000 weeks. Why don't you have a week with a number on it that you might aspire to? That's the real name of this podcast. And then the second thing to say, as I've said so many times, is, and it doesn't matter even if you have a $200,000 week, which I've never had. I've been close. And when I say that, that means that's not what we treatment planned. That's what patients paid and went through the cash register or wherever, if you will. And that's a distinction between what you treatment plan. Because in my opinion, and I've been very vocal about this in the 3.5 years of this podcast, one of the cornerstones of long-term success is getting paid up front for no other reason that it encourages patients to complete their work. And it is huge. It's huge when you don't have to worry about the front desk reminding the patient on Thursday, it's coming Thursday, with a very significant payment. And it's a 3-hour appointment. And you don't want to have them cancel or not show Thursday morning or have to fill it on Wednesday. So you call them on Monday. Sometimes we call them a week ahead before I had the policy that I've had for years. And I was just incredibly, after they confirm 1, 2, sometimes even more times, some natural catastrophe happens that Thursday morning that they cannot overcome and they don't show up for work. For your office. That is why, the number one reason. Because when you half finish a significant case, it's really bad will for the patient. It's bad will for your office. You're always going to look like the bad guy. I'm serious. I'll say it this way. I'd rather your patients never start work that they're not going to finish. I'd rather them not make a $5,000, $10,000 payment where they owe you half still. I have been there, guys. I've lived it. I know what it feels like to have a patient I didn't even remember because now it's years later and they disappeared into the world and they show up again and you're scrambling for what happened. And your office tells you, we sent letters. So while I'm on that, let me tell you what I used to do. If they broke more than 2 visits, at the second visit, we would send a Crown and Bridge letter, and we would send it registered. So they had to sign for it. We would also send it regular mail in case they didn't want to be caught not signing for something. You get me? Look, we're talking about people here. Most of them have a very good reason. It's usually financial. Why they didn't want to make that payment to you that Thursday and continue their treatment. I'm simply saying to you, that ends up a negative for everyone involved. Them too. They would have been better off never starting, never paying you anything. So when you hear me say 100K or 50K, that doesn't mean, oh, that sounds great. I'm doing this the first week in September. Nope. It means we got paid for it. And we're probably doing it, starting it somewhere between the next 2 and 3 weeks. And then the second thing is this. You can have $100,000 a week or more and have that times 52 weeks a year and have a $4 or $5 million practice and be losing money. Guys, this is not complicated. If you're just judging your success based on your revenues and not on what sticks, then it's a bad way to operate any business, including ours. People that aren't paying, dentists that aren't paying their taxes, dentists that are way living beyond their means. There's just a myriad of reasons what I just said is true. So yeah, it's a lot of energy and it's a lot of effort to make this all fit correctly for an optimal career and balance of that and your personal life to be blessed as well. It is a lot. It is. And that's why I've always been somebody that tried to surround myself with people that were better than myself at figuring the parts out that I'm not good at. So I always had great accountants around me. I had more than one person look at my books. Some of you know already that I had a virtual accountant for many years. So think about that. She was not the accountant that filed my taxes. She was the accountant that backed up my numbers independently from what my office was giving me monthly and yearly. So I had peace of mind, quite honestly. That cost me about $600 a month. And for, $7,200 a year, yeah. That size of a practice, well over 4 million to 5, needed that. I needed that. That's why I had an attorney on retainer, not because I get sued all the time, because I've been sued once in 42 years. And that was in the very, very early days. And it's because a patient had an episode, by the way, of malignant hyperthermia, which I still don't know how it happened. And I didn't understand it. And I settled for 10 grand without insurance, I think. Or maybe I didn't. I don't remember. I'm saying I had an attorney. Do I return? Because it was worth it to me on staff to have an attorney that was familiar with dental legal issues. Do you release the records if the patient owes you money? Are you allowed to keep them? What about staff that ends in a poor way for you? Advertising, on and on and on and on. I found it to be, I used him until he retired about 10 years ago, maybe less. So I'm sorry, but these thoughts just come out when I talk to you because I've gotten pretty comfortable looking in this camera at you and having these discussions. But I want to get back to why, because I'm very, very clear on this. So when I say, why do you don't have $100,000 weeks? I really mean, why don't you have the numbers you want? Number one, you're marketing wrong. You haven't thought out your marketing. So let me help you. And I'll give you a story. So about 6 years ago, I opened up a third practice in Philadelphia, in the city, in the heart of the city. It was a mistake. I kept that practice for 1.5 years. I finally sold it for a loss because I made a really impetuous decision to begin with. And I found in the 1.5 years I was there that it was a very different clientele than I was familiar with. This clientele was a lot of up-and-coming yuppies that lived in the city. And I noticed things I never noticed about patients before because I practice in a rural area. So people don't have to worry about the parking meters where I practice. And my cat's trying to make it onto the video this week. Calm down. No, don't come over here. No, get down. Come on. There's not enough room. Anyway, I never noticed people until then looking at their watches because they're worried about their parking bill. I wasn't used to people not getting approved as high as the decline rate was in Philadelphia at that time. Approved credit-wise, to use that for their dental needs. And I didn't know how to market in Philadelphia to bring in, at that time, the market I wanted. So if you're not marketing a lot and you want to try something new, you probably need to write to me at drrasner@aol.com. Don't judge me by that email address. And you want to market to people that listen to oldies. Because without a doubt, unequivocally, that is your best market. People over the age of 60. And the beautiful thing is when I started 42 years ago, the ages of 70 to 90 were a lot different than they are today. That is your best market, without a doubt. I don't know what that market will be 20 years from now, but I know right now it's your best market. And I know those people love oldies stations. So an oldies station in your community, a talk show in your community. And my preference would be not the biggest station in a city, but maybe a suburb that you could be heard in, because the ROI, the return on your investment, is much greater. I'm on the radio 5 times a day, sponsoring the weather at exactly the same time of day. 10 of the hour, 10 of 6 in the morning, 10 of 7, 10 of 8. And I've been on that show for at least 6 years. I bring the weather, and it's a 60-second talk by me, and it costs me $1,000 a month. That's a no-brainer. Just so you know, I'm not that smart. I paid $22,000 back when I was in Philadelphia to be on ESPN twice a day, 3 or 4 days a week, only at around 3:30 or 4. And I got 2 patients out of that campaign, and I paid $22,000. So don't do that. So you're marketing wrong. Don't you get it? And earlier in my career, my big platform for marketing was an appointment today. I thought I was brilliant because I was saying to the community, teeth don't know what time it is when they hurt. I thought it was genius. But let me tell you what that attracts. It did work. It attracts people only with emergencies, mainly. And that's not a good market. They'll be polite. They'll come to the first visit for sure. I even wrote an article on it 20 years ago called The Hidden Jewel. The Hidden Jewel. And my concept was that if you treat these patients with dignity, the emergency patient that made the appointment today, but if you treat them like you do all your new patients, as if they had made it a week ago, and you block out time each day for this emergency, because back then I got more emergencies, that they'll see and feel the value of being treated not like an emergency patient that they truly are, most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. But they'll see and feel the value of being treated like a patient that sought quality oral health care. And it did work for many years, but the results were diluted by people who just faded, because a lot of patients' careers, as you know, are emergencies. They just don't value preventative dentistry. They don't value preventative oral medicine. So you're marketing wrong. I wasn't drawing patients that listened to oldies and trusted me and wanted a new dentist. And it's the perfect time for this, by the way, because patients are really frustrated with the tsunami of older doctors like myself who are just retiring or selling to corporate dentistry. And these patients roll into the office that they've been going to for the last 20 years, and there's a new dentist there. You get me? Listen, man, that's a real personal relationship, as I don't have to convince you it is. And they had this personal relationship, whether he was good or not, or she, with this dentist for many years, and that patient's gone. And they got some young guy that maybe doesn't have Lionhearted principles in place and gives off a bad vibe. I am seeing a plethora of new patients with that background. So your marketing's wrong. The next thing is you think your case presentation is good enough, and it's not. I blow the patients away with everything that happens from the first time they call the office to the moment and for the time they're in my operatory for the first time. Everything from including the significant other in that visit, all this is documented well in my prior podcast. And I make it very clear in very friendly language. Go back and look at my very first and early podcast. I spent 4 to 5 on case presentations. And go back and look at them. And you'll hear me talk about not intimidating but everything, the importance of body language, eye contact, being likable, and the importance and value, and showing them that you're passionate, you like what you do. Do you not get it? Do you not know that many of your colleagues give off really bad vibes and karma because they don't love dentistry? They're not listening to my podcast or any podcast right now. They're not. They're golfing or doing something other than becoming better versions of themselves. They're doubtfully taking CE. And they're not trying to learn one extra gem every week by listening to a series of podcasts. So the second reason you don't have big weeks is because your case presentations aren't good enough. And part of the case presentation being not good enough is that you're going to love this. As Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies used to say, you're not right between the forehead, up in that forehead of yours. Granny used to say when somebody wasn't thinking well, clearly, that they're not right in the forehead. And you're not right if you're allowing insurance to dictate your treatments, and I know that many, many of you do. So go back and find a podcast on the endless reasons why that is counterintuitive to being a lion-hearted dentist. It's horrible. It's just, listen, when you're new at this, like many of you are, there's too much coming at you for you to figure it all out. So many of us take insurance that you don't see the wisdom or even have the ability to think out of the box that you shouldn't be doing that. So, of course, you don't give a good presentation because you're not thinking about comprehensive approach to the patient you're about to examine, which I do and any good dentist does on every single patient that enters my office, 100% of the time. You've heard me say, if you would just commit, try it for 4 months, to any patient that comes in, that you're going to do a comprehensive exam, examining the 5 areas that you hear me talk about, which are the health of their periodontium first, the biology of every tooth, the effects of their present occlusion. Are they parafunctional? Are they in a class 2, div 2, whatever occlusion are in that may be resulting in trauma to a given tooth that has bone loss? Okay? Or the fourth one is they're missing teeth and what impact, if any, it doesn't always, have on the overall health of this patient. And 5, and not coincidentally, is the aesthetic evaluation, unless they came here for that reason. And if you did that, if you committed to those 5, you wouldn't have time to give injections of Botox in patients as a service. I know. Send me I can't even think of it. You don't send me hate mail. None of you do, but I don't know. Some other kind of mail. Look, if you did diligence to an examination, as I just discussed, on every patient, you literally wouldn't have time to do that. And you wouldn't be thinking of ways to expand your services because you would be inundated with providing dental basic services. And I say basic, I include implant dentistry in that as well. And I just want to wrap this by giving you examples of this week. I mean, this is the week I had. Listen to me. I had no new patients on Monday or Tuesday. I found that to be a little weird. And we had a really kind of mediocre Monday and Tuesday. I think we did like 8,000 on Monday, not production. We did plenty. 10 grand on Tuesday. So by going into Wednesday, I had like 20,000, maybe it was a little bit more, dollars of paid services. And we ended up with 120,000 this week. And I only work Wednesday and Thursday. Well, Wednesday and Thursday were monster days. Wednesday was like a $60,000 day. Why? Because another reason that you don't have those killer weeks that you hear me talk about or others is the scope of your services. I mean, I don't know how you would not want to include, unless you really detest surgery. I don't know why you wouldn't include. It's so fulfilling. The training of implant dentistry. And of course, if you're going to learn that, you must also know how to remove teeth. So it is a lot. I get it. But I had a case on Wednesday that he was 82 years old. He had a dent. Now, this patient came to me for 30 years taking his wife to me. He never came to me. I never even barely remember him. And I did implants for her years ago. And listen, when a spouse allows me to work on their significant other for 30 years and he doesn't come to me, I figure either he doesn't like me, scared of me for some reason. Maybe I failed in my communications with him when he was in the room so many times with his wife. But he's 82 years old. And he came to me. His wife had passed. And he was wearing a denture from an organization that apparently didn't satisfy him, an office. And he's like, can't even wear it. I wonder if you can do implants like you did for my wife. And I don't mind sharing with you what I've said to him. And I'll tell you something interesting. So I didn't know much about this gentleman. And by the way, this is on the maxilla. And on the mandible, he also needed extensive crown and bridge. And I had no idea what his means were. And I said to this gentleman, I said, listen, after talking to him about a lot of other things, I said, you really got to want this if this is what you're thinking. I will tell you ahead of time what makes you unusual. When somebody comes in here and once they know they want implants and they're wearing a denture for a while, and I look at their CT scan like I did you, they almost never have bone. And so then the journey becomes even more daunting. So I'm telling this patient on purpose, some good stuff before I get to anything else. I said, you do have the bone at 82 years old. And I have a host of patients way younger than you that don't have bone. So that means if they want what you want, they're going to pay me and grow bone for 9 months to a year. But you're not. You just have to do the pay part. And it's significant. And he already said to me, he said, yeah, I know. I know they're $1,000 each. That's what he said to me. Regarding implants. I said, well, no, they're way more than that. Because I'm prepared. That's what he's saying to me. And I went in through the discussion. I'd rather a patient bail on me in the beginning than remotely ever think that I misled them about what was involved. And I was very, very specific, as I always am. I said, this is the steps that will be involved. And then at the end of all that, I said, look, you got to discuss with Michelle if this fits in your world financially. I don't know if it does. And if there's anybody in your life that would have a hesitation with you making this commitment, then you should talk to them first. I swear to you, that's how I speak to everybody. Anyway, he committed. It was significant. Now, I have patients that come in that are 64 years old that say, I don't want to invest in any of my teeth. I'm half gone. How much more am I going to live? I kid you not. I have those patients also. But I remember going into Wednesday of this week thinking, man, this hasn't happened in a long time. This week's going to stink. Now, I was very productive, me as a clinician, but I wasn't getting anything new until Wednesday and Thursday. So they were significant days. And it's because of why? Well, this old timer got me from 92 First. That's the radio station I advertise on, as I alluded to. This old timer trusted me, because that's the message, and he should, that I send on that radio station. And if you want to advertise, I can send you examples of the radio ad. I think they're tremendous. You can copy the verbiage verbatim, unless you're in my part of the country. Then it would look weird. And so I never even thought about his insurance. I don't know if he had insurance. I certainly know my case presentation was good enough. And when I say that to you, it means I wasn't tricking him. I was passionate. I was honest. I was considerate of him. I brought up his age. I don't always do that, but I do it a lot if they're in their 80s. And so that's how that happened. And I could tell you a myriad of other smaller cases that came in during this week that, just looking at the patient, I know they went to good old Joe, and I know I was a daunting change for them to accept. I mean, a good old Joe, look at my old podcast. No crowns in their mouth, missing teeth, perio. I mean, what did they have done? They're hard. And they're hard, and I tell that patient that they're hard because you and I, chose a profession where often the pathology that the patient has, unlike a dermatologist, unlike a primary care physician, is asymptomatic. That's what you and I chose. So patients are sometimes suspicious. And I don't hit a home run every time. I don't. I am consistent in the qualities of my exam, being empathetic, really trying to get them truly good advice based on what they want, the parameters of what's in their mouth, everything. So that's all I have for you this week. I call it why you're not having the 100K week, but I've said it already. It doesn't have to be 100K. It just means why you're not achieving the goals. And it's because you're marketing wrong. Your case presentations aren't good enough. So you're not thinking comprehensive care. You let insurance intermingle. And maybe you don't believe in yourself enough yet. I'm not sure. Reach out to me. And let's have a great week. See you next week on the Lionhearted.